Hey guys, something that I just realized is with React Native, if you're using Expo and you have local images or files and your users are using your app, that those local files are not sitting on their phone. Expo actually has a CDN that is, or they're using Amazon CDN to send the images or host the images. So whenever the app needs even local images, so for example, getting an asset like this, circle.jpg, even though it looks like it's coming from the app itself, it's actually getting taken from the CDN that Expo has set up. And so what this means is if your user is offline, they cannot actually access that CDN. So even images that look like this will not show up in the app. So what I wanted to do was add this or add a workaround, because they talk about it in this article, and one way you can fix this is by running this on the image. And what that does is it'll actually download the image from the CDN and store it locally. So that's what we're going to do, and add it to my component that already caches remote images. So now we'll handle both, and basically what I want to do now is, since I'm handling both remote and local, I just want to go ahead and basically be a drop-in replacement for the image component, except now we cache everything. So the first thing that I want to do with this is to fix the type, because I put my types in a different folder called types.ts, and in here I split up things and I set the URI as a string, and I actually forgot to remove it from here, but we're now no longer going to have that. We're going to have a source just like the image. So I'm going to go ahead and change my props to image props, and that is going to be the props for my component now. And I can just go ahead and remove this from types, and we can just kill this all together. So now I'm really just going to have a state, which is going to be a URI source. Okay, so now we have source here, and first thing we have to fix is we now don't longer use props, we use image props. So let's go ahead and change those. So with that said, image props do not have an image, right? So let's get rid of this. So this is going to be source. Source is now the thing that we're going to be changing, and we're not going to get the source from the props. We're going to get this source from the state, like we have that, and how we're passing it in here. So now when I do component did mount, I was originally getting the source, or the URI. We now are going to have the source. So let's go ahead and pass that in. Source, source. Okay, so now for download image, I need to handle a source, not a string. So this is going to be image URI source. And if we were to look at what this could be, here it is. So it could be a URI, and I actually want to support the other types. So where is image properties? So I want to show you guys this. So it could either be an image URI source, an array of it, or an image require source. So this is really, I'm actually going to create like a new type, because I think that'll be easiest to use across. So actually let's create it over here in types. I'm going to call this type uppercase source. So this is what we're going to use, and let's go ahead and import this. So image require source, and that's actually what our source here is going to be. So source, and we just need to export it. Okay, so now my state is good. So now it's actually just going to be a source, and that's what my state is. So on source, I have to check what type of source I have, whether I have, and require is just a number, by the way. So if URI, and we're going to check the type of, is equal to a number, we know this is going to be a local image, and it's going to be of something like require image.png. That's what it's going to look like. Else if array.isArray, so we're going to check if the let's call this source. Let's call it what it really is, not URI anymore. So if the source is a required tag, we're going to handle it in some fashion. We're next going to check if the source is an array. And then we're going to say else. So these are going to be the three ways we're going to handle each one. I'm going to treat these two the same. If it's not an array, then it's just an array of one item. So now I'm going to say async download remote image given a let's give an array of strings or something. I don't know exactly what I want as my parameter yet, but I'm going to move everything into that. Okay. So now first I want to handle what happens with local images, and then I'll handle the remote image. So I'm going to say async download local image. So we're going to handle remote and local. And here we're going to just take the source, which is we know is going to be a image, I think a number. Well, we know it's a number, but it was the image requires source. Image requires source. So download local image, and we'll pass in the source. Okay, so now here we're going to do exactly what they show here, but slightly differently. And the reason for that is we don't need to download it every single time. We first need to check if it's in the cache already. So asset, get that from Expo. So I'm going to say const asset, and we're going to await this. And this is going to be our source. So here I just await it. And then after we await it, if we look over here, this talks about what happens with the asset. So we get an asset object back. And here's where we can see if there's a local URI. So if the asset has been downloaded, by calling download async, the URI is pointing to the local file on the device. So what I want to do is say if asset has that local URI, then I don't have to call download async. Otherwise, I do. Otherwise, we're going to wait asset.download async. And then after that, I should get a local URI out of that, I believe. If we come back over here, we can see how they do it. They're waiting for promise.all, and they don't talk about what they do with it afterwards. I assume what they're doing afterwards is they're getting the local URI. So this is going to be, we can actually look at what download async returns. Do they have it here? Nope, they don't talk about what, oh, here we go, maybe. We'll have to test it out and see what happens, but what I think I get back is const new asset, and I assume this new asset, and let's see, it should tell us the type. No, this is a void. Maybe it just changes. So once we've downloaded it, I think maybe, and we can console.log asset.local URI, whether this now exists. And it doesn't like it because we don't want to console log anything. That's fine. So I'm going to say let local URI equal null, and we're going to say local URI is equal to asset.local URI. Otherwise, it's equal to asset.local URI. Actually, I really just need to check it. I'm doing this poorly. The local URI, if it's not there, all I have to do is call download async. So I'm just going to say do this differently. So if local URI doesn't exist, it should now afterwards. So then I can say this.setState, and we're going to say source, and we're going to set the URI equal to asset.local URI. Okay. So I I think I'm happy with the local one, the download local image. So here we are checking if it exists already, and if it doesn't exist, we download it. If it's already local, we then just set the URI to the source, and then we're done with that. Okay, so download local image is good. Let's handle download remote image. We basically have everything we need, but now I want to pass it an array. So this is going to be, we'll say URIs, and this is going to be an array of image URI source. So if it is an array, we just directly pass it in. So this dot download remote image, I'm going to pass in the source, so we know it's an array. This dot download remote image. So here we know that source is not an array, right? Because we checked. And this is really cool that TypeScript also knows it's not an array. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make it into an array. So it's an array of one element. So now here we're always handling some kind of array of URIs. And so all we're going to really do is check now. We're just going to go through the URIs of each one. So here, the best way is we could just regularly loop over them, but that seems bad because what I want to do is group them. Like this asynchronous call here, I want to group the async calls so they happen in parallel. So that one and the download, I feel like you could download a couple at a time if we wanted to. So first, I guess we can grab the names. I guess the best way with name is to create a dictionary. So I'm going to say const names is going to be key string, and it's going to have string. So now I'm going to say URIs dot for each, and URI and the type of this is going to be an image source URI. I don't know if I actually need to explicitly type it. I want to see if it picks up. Does it? Yep, okay, so cool, it does pick up on the type automatically. But for each one, I'm going to say names short hash dot, actually no, the key is going to be the URI and the value is going to be short hash dot unique URI. And right, so URI dot URI. I really should call this sources. I think is a better name than URIs. So this is a single source. And now source.URI sources. Okay, that makes more sense. So type undefined cannot be used as an index type. So it looks like URI can be undefined. So we're going to say if source.URI, then we're going to do this. We don't really care if it's not defined. Okay, so this is us hashing it, and the name, and really we don't need the name, but we want the path. Do we use name anywhere else? We don't. We really just want to create the path. So the path is going to be file system.cache directory, and then this is going to be our name, and then I'm going to add .png at the end. So don't need either of those. We do both of those in this step here. And actually, you know what? I should just map this, because then, yeah, I should just map this. I actually did this in kind of a poor manner. Well, not too bad, but we could do map here. So this is going to be const image exists. So here's where we're going to check where the images exist. And we're going to say sources, and we're going to map instead of for each, because what I want to return is a promise of this. So you know what, this is so much simpler if I actually just forget about asynchronous. I feel like it's going to be complicated going down this route. What I wanted to do is we could do right, I could return this. and this will return an array of promises. So then I could do promise.all and await it. But we're going to get like a problem with ordering, and I don't want to deal with all that stuff. So I'm going to just go back, and I'm just going to let it handle a single URI. So you're going to handle a single source. So source, now instead of updating the state, it's just going to return the new source. So this is going to be source.URI. If source.URI, so if it does not exist, we return null. So now what I want to do is, instead of set state, we're just going to return the new URI, which is going to be image.URI. And same thing here. So what I'm going to do is now set the state where I call this. Return new image.URI. This will be source.URI. Okay, so now down here in download image, so now I'm going to pass it source.URI, and we're just going to say const new URI is going to be await that. Oh, we can just pass it in like that. So here we're going to say this dot set state, and we're going to say source. I hate that it keeps doing that. So we're going to keep all the properties that is already on source, and then we're just going to say URI is equal to new URI. Okay, so what does it not like? Type property source incompatible. So source here, what type do we specify it as? We specify it as a source, that it can be one of those. That's good. And so what if I got rid of the URI itself? Does that fix it? Oh, that does fix it. I'm pretty sure. So this is an image URI source. Can I really not set the URI here? I mean, I could just do source.new URI, right? Or URI is equal to new URI. I guess because it's read only. Alright, so for whatever reason it doesn't like it. What I can do instead is, instead of returning the URI here, I can return source, and the URI is equal to that. So I can just do it here. I don't know if this will fix it. I think we might get the same type error. Source URI image.URI, and this should be new image. There we go. So we return that back. So now here, this is really new source. This is what we get back. Okay, so now this will be easier to look at, I suppose. So argument of type source, types of property source are incompatible. Null is not assignable to type. Okay, so this could return null is what it's saying. So all I have to do is say if new source, then I update it. There we are. So that was the only problem. Okay, so let's do the same thing with this. So I'm going to say source.map this.download remote component. So const new sources is equal to promise.all. So it's going to return a bunch of promises back, because this is an asynchronous function and we're mapping over it. So I'm going to say promise.all, and this will await it. So we'll get that back. Actually, I think this is fine. This is happening, I believe, in parallel too. So this is actually the best way to do it, I think. The way I was doing it before, I think, would just be too much work and like not as simple as this. And I don't think we actually get any gain from it. So we have new sources. We want to filter out any that are not null. So I'm going to say this dot set state is going to be source is equal to new sources dot filter x where x dot URI, where a URI exists. I'm guessing it doesn't like it for the same reason, because some of them might be, yeah, it might be undefined. So even with the filter, that doesn't work. So what if this complicates things here. I'm going to say if source.URI. And okay, so now hopefully it's not is this the problem? Is this one? Okay, so the URI is just straight optional, and that's the problem. Okay, so what I want to do instead is actually definitely just return the URI. Sorry guys, I keep changing my mind, but I like this the best. We're just trying to get it to work to fiddle around with TypeScript. Okay. So I now only return a URI, and I'm fine. Am I fine returning? Okay, so now I return a new URI. Really what I should pass in now is a string. Okay, so we're going to pass the string URI in. And now download image. So here we're going to pass in source.URI. And now we're going to say ... source, and URI is equal to new URI. Awesome. So we didn't get any warnings there. Now I think I can get it to work up here with this one as well. So now instead of directly mapping it for each source, I'm going to pass in source. Why would the URI be optional for this? That's what I'm questioning. When would you ever have an image that is not? But we can filter these out first. We're going to say const source with URI. You know what? No. We really have to do it here. I'm trying to get it to fiddle with so it works with the type. I think I have to do it here. So if s.URI, we're going to do stuff. Otherwise, we're going to return null. So we're either returning a source or null. Here we're going to return, do I want to return source? We're mapping over, passing it in, and here was where I call download remote. So pass in the URI because it does exist. And null promise. I don't think I can just promise null like this. I forget how to do it. It's not callable. Is it new promise? Argument type null is not assignable to parameter. Is it like this? I don't think it's like this. I forget how to just call. I think I can promise like an array like that. I don't think I can promise null. What I will do though, this is a really hacky solution for now, and then I'll figure out how to get this to work. Return null. and it returns null. So this is an asynchronous function that returns null. So here I want to return null. So this is something that returns a promise of null. Alright, so here now I have new sources. Okay, yeah, should be an array of URIs or null URIs. Alright, so the index of new sources matches with source. So I'm just going to say, we're going to do a straight for loop. Const new source. This is going to be new URIs. And we're going to do for let I is equal to 0, I is less than source dot length, I plus equal 1. Prefer for of. Oh really? It doesn't like just straight for loop? I don't know how to do a for of with two of them, so we're gonna ignore this ESLint warning. So I'm gonna push, and here's what I'm gonna push. So if we're gonna say const URI is equal to new URIs at position I. If URI exists, then we're gonna say this is a source, so it's gonna be dot 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 source at position I and then URI. Okay, so this is us creating new sources, and I don't need to filter anything here. Okay, I think we're done now. This one was more complex than I thought it would be. So this is trying to handle a mapping of sources, or an array of sources, I mean. So let's go over the logic real quick. So I first loop over all the sources. I map it. And then I check if the source is a URI. And if the source has a URI, I go ahead and download and create a new local image for it. Otherwise, I return null. And this is basically a promise that returns null. I need to look up how to just like do this without creating this little hacky function. So I'll switch that out. So then we have a bunch of promises. That's what this gives. So we're awaiting all of them. And now we have a list of strings that are either URIs or they're null. So that's why we loop here. We're looping through the source. The source should be the same length as this because we're mapping over it. And so we can loop through both at the same time. And then for each URI, I'm checking whether it's null or not. If it's not null, I push it on to this array. And this is just keeping all of the previous attributes of source, adding on the URI. And then here I go at the end and set state. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this because this is not super elegant. But I think it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and test this next. But that's it for this video, guys. Sorry for all the things I changed my mind about. This is, I guess, more of like a development video of me just adding on to this and trying to figure out how to get this to work. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching.